What's up, everybody? This is the Youngling Killer Man here, and today, I recently went back to play Battlefront 2, and I was having so much fun with my buddies, but then, I became really confused. As I was meditating and watching those wrist rockets just like the simulations, I saw a vision of the future. It was a dark vision, so horrible I almost shudder to think about it. No. I saw a future completely devoid of Star Wars Battlefront 3. I recently had an epiphany. It's like, why hasn't Battlefront 3 been announced yet? I mean, it's been almost 6 years since the last one. What could possibly be taking so long? And then it hit me like a blaster bolt to the groin. Battlefront 3 is taking so long because they're not making it.
Impossible. Perhaps the archives are incomplete.
And then I had an even worse realization. Battlefront 3 will likely never be released. Because always two there are. No more, no less. At this point, I'm convinced this series is cursed to never replicate the movies and create its own complete trilogy. So today, that's what we're gonna talk about. The tragedy of Star Wars Battlefront 3. But first, why is Battlefront so important? Yes, this is a dumb question, but Star Wars has seen hundreds of games release over the last 40 years across every conceivable genre. And amongst all of these Star Wars games, I'd go out and say Battlefront 3 is the most important and iconic. It combines virtually everything we love about Star Wars into a single game. Epic space battles, intense boots on the ground combat, large-scale warfare with vehicles, clones, droids, Wookiees, Ewoks, tons of different classes stretching across all three eras of the films. All our favorite heroes and villains duking it out across several different planets. Battlefront to me always felt like Star Wars' answer to other mainstream online shooters. Something that could go toe-to-toe with whatever the top shooter is. Fortnite, Halo, COD, doesn't matter. Battlefront can compete with it. And not to mention the fan service these games provided and memorable one-liners.
Now hear this. All hands man your battle stations.
All four mainline Battlefronts are in the top 10 list of best-selling Star Wars titles ever. The Battlefront series has sold well over 43 million copies. That's like a fourth of all Star Wars video game sales. And that's what's so confusing about this. EA has historically been, well, how would I put this? A company that might secretly be run by Mr. Krabs.
Is this good for the player?
Battlefront is just an awesome series. It's an amazing concept. And better yet, it's a money printing machine. And they've decided to turn it off? Huh? Star Wars Battlefront 3 isn't happening? DICE won't get the chance to make it?
No fucking way!
What kind of nonsense is this?
So nobody's working on a new Battlefront game. Why? Just in case you had the tiniest sliver of hope that I might be wrong about this, according to this VentureBeat article, DICE and EA are not working on Battlefront 3 and have no plans to. Ladies and gentlemen, please take out your lightsabers and join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. And the craziest thing about it, apparently EA rejected a sales pitch from DICE for Battlefront 3. I guess everyone was putting all their eggs in the 2042 basket.
It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him.
He chose poorly.
As Tom Henderson says, due to licensing costs, it takes 20% more sales to make the same money, said one past developer. So EA was concerned about not getting 20% more sales than usual. Buddy? Buster? My guy? My dude? It's Star Wars. It's Battlefront. It sells on its name alone. I mean, just think about how fucking hyped people would be if Battlefront 3 got announced. Remember how I talked about Baldur's Gate 3 being the culmination of Larian's work on RPGs? That's what I feel like Battlefront 3 could have been. Maybe if they didn't stop working on the second game to make 2042, life would be a lot different and better. Just in case there weren't enough reasons to be salty about 2042, its godforsaken release is a huge reason why EA is distancing themselves from DICE. In turn, DICE has decided Thank you. That they'll be focusing entirely on fixing 2042. As of June 22nd last year, I don't think anything has changed. DICE's general manager says, "We are only focusing on 2042. There is no time for anything else. In 3 years, we want to be the first-person shooter powerhouse that DICE deserves to be." DICE certainly deserves to be an FPS powerhouse, because they're not right now, and that's what this statement implies.
It is such a quiet thing to fall, but far more terrible is to admit it.
DICE is in a rebuild season right now, probably for a few seasons, which makes sense. She also said, "I want the team to be really proud about Battlefield 2042. That is what they are chasing, and they have their hearts and passion there." You know, I was gonna make a joke about abandoning a ship that's already been sunk, but I can respect it. If you take a massive dump in the kitchen, you can't just wait for it to decompose. You gotta clean that up. Get some disinfectant. I can understand why fixing Battlefield 2042 is more of a priority in terms of like pride, but I don't quite understand why DICE isn't pursuing the more lucrative option. Probably because of EA. You know, 2042 was so bad in my eyes that working on it does feel like a lost cause, because I'm probably never gonna play it again. I doubt that game's launch is something they can recover from, like the launch of BF2. I'd rather them go back to updating that, to be quite honest. Even if we're impatient as fuck and want a Battlefront 3 ASAP, I don't think anybody wants DICE, at least current DICE, to make one. Perhaps fixing and improving 2042 is a test for DICE, and if they prove themselves, maybe they'll get another shot. At the very least, we have a consolation prize, because at least 2 other Star Wars games are in development, an FPS being developed by Respawn, and an unnamed strategy game. So those are some pretty big reasons why we're not getting Battlefront 3 anytime soon. But is it still possible to get it in the unforeseen future? I don't know, man. There's a lot of hurdles to overcome. Like monetization. I'm not sure who loves live service games more, Activision or EA, but it's safe to say I bet a lot of higher-ups were pissed they had to pull loot boxes out of the game at the last minute. I mean, the entire internet got so pissed. It completely derailed their monetization plans, and they didn't even introduce microtransactions into Battlefront 2 until 5 months after release. That's 5 months of loot box sales they missed out on. No doubt this left a bad taste in EA's mouth. It left a bad taste in all our mouths, man. Sometimes I still get a faint whiff of goat vomit every time I think about someone paying for star cards. Like Battlefield 2042, it seems the continued updates, development, and content for Battlefront 2 was there to repair the game's image, as well as DICE's. You know, they ended up replacing loot boxes with paid cosmetics, many that were awesome, but no way in Hoth did they make more money than they would have with loot boxes. In this sense, Battlefront 3 might seem too risky to the EA higher-ups, and a game like that is gonna need funding. The stigma around this series is also too strong to ignore. I mean, loot boxes became associated with gambling, and several countries introduced new legislation as a result. This was basically the straw that broke the camel's back, and now everyone has slowly but surely abandoned the loot box model. The cold hard truth is that yes, we defeated the loot box menace, but we paid a heavy price for that. Battlefront 3 was the cost of that victory. Any announcement for Battlefront 3 would bring up that same discussion again, you know? How the hell would they monetize this game without pissing people off? Well, paid premium cosmetics are always a barrel to dip into. So the bottom line, DICE and EA aren't working on Battlefront 3 because it's too much of a clusterfuck. And although these reasons make sense, it doesn't make it any less disappointing. But Actman, I have an ace up my sleeve, a trump card. What if another studio were to make it? I hate to disappoint you, but that idea is more improbable than DICE making it. I mean, I guess EA doesn't hold a monopoly on the Star Wars video game license anymore. I suppose anybody could make Battlefront 3, but here's the conundrum. We all have pretty high expectations for an official third Battlefront, so anything less than what we have in 2 is gonna feel like a downgrade. Like I said, DICE is in no position to make it, especially after losing so much senior talent in the last few years. And I want to believe you that another studio could do it, but the nail in the coffin for this idea is if that studio isn't working with the Frostbite engine, they'll have to start from scratch. Now, the Frostbite engine can apparently be licensed to other studios, but it's also notoriously hard to work with. So no studio in their right mind is going to license that software, pay the licensing fee to DICE and for the Star Wars IP, to then take years to teach their staff how to use it just to salvage the work that DICE has. If DICE would even let them use that work, you know what I mean? You see what a clusterfuck this would be? So much awesome work has already been done that like scrapping all of that is just an awful idea. Whoever makes Battlefront 3 needs to build on what's already there, because that's the only way we're gonna get galactic conquest again. This is all besides the point that the perfect Battlefront 3 had already been canceled once before. Unfortunately, there's just too much drama surrounding the series. I mean, the third and fourth games were planned by Free Radical and LucasArts, but bad blood between the two companies got them both canceled. Former Free Radical developer and current lead designer at Naughty Dog, Michael Barclay, said, Star Wars Battlefront 3 was going to be legit incredible, and the fact it got canceled 2 yards from the finish line is an absolute crime. Gamers don't know what they were robbed of. Oh, I know, Michael. I know that we are robbed of a contender for greatest Star Wars video game ever made. I know you guys were planning on having ground to space battles in the same scenario, the same map. I know that you guys wanted to add Master Coda, Asajj Ventress, and Ahsoka as playable heroes. Still don't have that. And that you could just take off with a ship and fly up to an enemy carrier, and then it's just like you're in the Battlefront 2 space battles.
Now hear this.
A fourth game was in the pre-planning phase, and it would have been all about what ifs, alternate scenarios. And I found some of the coolest fucking concept art that I can't believe none of this has been used to sell skins or anything. Like Dark Mace Windu, an alternate scenario where his lightsaber exploded in the duel with Sidious but he survived. Redeemed Vader. Look at that. Dark Jedi Leia, pre-Cyborg Grievous. Shit, man, I'd pay good money for cosmetics like these. A Battlefront game that's all about what-if scenarios, it sounds like the perfect direction. It's such a shame, man. Free Radical had so many incredible ideas that you can check out on this archive site if you want to be sad. Although the unfinished gameplay looks rough, it gives you a pretty good idea of how awesome this game would have been if it was complete. These concept art images remind me of that alternate ending in the episode 3 game where Anakin kills Obi-Wan in the Mustafar duel, and then he kills Palpatine and says,
No, the galaxy belongs to me.
and that was one of like the coolest Star Wars moments ever. So imagine creating an entire game based around moments and stories like that. What would have happened if Darth Vader lived, you know, after Luke saved him from the Emperor? What if Luke turned to the dark side at some point? Maybe these games are just too ambitious, and that's why we haven't seen a third one. Free Radical apparently was unable to meet milestones, deadlines, and eventually LucasArts got fed up with it. And though Battlefront 2015 offered a great spectacle, it just wasn't it, Chief. You know, nobody wants to have a neutered Battlefront again with no Clone Wars or space battles, you know what I mean? Anything less than what we currently have with Battlefront 2 would feel disappointing. Realistically, it's just such an imposing game for anyone to make. So with all that being said, I think it's apparent why Battlefront 3 hasn't been made, why it was canceled in 2008, and why EA rejected a sales pitch for it, and why nobody is currently working on it. It's a monumental task too easy to fuck up. I hope to see it one day. I mean, hopefully before I die, because there's a hole in my heart that only wrist rockets can fill. The series just might be too ambitious, too much of a risk, and not a single developer is in a position to build off the latest entry. So where does that leave us? Well, you and me, we're all just brothers and sisters without an army. And that is the tragedy of Star Wars Battlefront 3. But what do you think? Post your thoughts and ideas for your ideal Battlefront 3 in the comments below. Like the video if you enjoyed it, and subscribe to the Act Man for more awesome content. Alright everyone, that's all I got for today. This is the Act Man signing out. Peace!